As the cops approached, a pack of dogs incessantly barked at a parked car. Suddenly, they heard a strange sound emanating from within. What awaited them inside left them utterly stunned. Undoubtedly, the incessant barking of dogs echoed down an inconspicuous side street. While it might have been easy to overlook, the clamor of the entire pack was far too loud to ignore. That was what caught Jake's attention. He would have passed by the street and dismissed the car, an ordinary-looking white hatchback, if not for the cacophony those dogs created. There were 7 of them, varying in size and color, most of medium to large, with the lean, sturdy build of dogs accustomed to hardship, dogs familiar with hunger and deprivation. Jake knew this particular group of dogs very well. Privately, he referred to them as the Sycamore Street Crew. They could often be spotted patrolling Sycamore Street or lounging around in front of what used to be Nick's pizzeria. Perhaps they still lingered there because Nick also harbored a soft spot for them, regularly leaving behind scraps of chicken and ham. The leader of this pack of dogs was a white old boxer, whose eyes always carried the hurt of having been betrayed by his previous family, his human family. Like all boxers, he must have loved them deeply before they cruelly abandoned him. His beta, the second in command, had some German shepherd in his bloodline, as evidenced by his black and tan coat coloring. Like the boxer, he could have been a loyal family pet, but instead, he focused wholeheartedly on keeping his canine family group safe. There were 2 lively younger dogs, the terrible twins, who also had a little German shepherd in them. And when they had had a good meal, their playful antics showed that even street dogs could have a little fun. There was a regular pavement special as well as a terrier, but the one that broke Jake's heart was an older dog, a Labrador retriever, whose legs were a little stiff. He had recently lost his family and was still feeling shocked by the experience. For weeks, he stayed away from the group, feeling too shy and embarrassed about his situation to join them, but still wanting company. If Jake had a bigger place to live, he would have thought about taking him in and giving him a home. Every evening around 6:30, after the neighborhood got quiet, Jake brought food for the group. This poor Labrador, abandoned and alone, would cautiously wag his tail before eating. Jake was happy to see that the Sycamore Street gang was starting to accept him. They were good dogs who had been abandoned by their owners. It wasn't their fault they ended up on the street. Now aware that their loud barking wasn't normal for them, Jake approached the car, trying to calm the dogs with comforting words like nice dog and good dog. The Labrador wagged his tail immediately, and Jake wished he had some dog treats to give him. The Labrador backed a little from the car, giving Jake a chance to peer through the window. What he saw inside the car horrified him. 2 tiny kittens peeked out from under the car seat. It was immediately obvious that they were frightened and in distress. To Jake, they looked barely 6 weeks old. One was black and white, while the other was a dusty pale ginger. The car windows were closed on a hot day, which was bad news for the kittens trapped inside. Jake wondered how long the car had been there. It must have been a while because the dogs wouldn't have approached if the driver was still around. Jake couldn't understand why someone would leave helpless kittens in a hot car without thinking about their safety. It's shocking how careless people can be with their pets. As Jake thought about this, he could still hear the dogs barking. Even though they were strays, they seemed to know there was an emergency. Jake looked around, trying to figure out where the driver might have gone. The street had tall buildings with no gates or doors in sight. Now he would have to go to the next street and knock on doors to find the driver. It seemed hopeless, and while he wasted time, the kittens could be getting dangerously hot. To make things worse, the driver could be in a building on either adjacent street. If it were Jake, he would have taken the kittens with him. Who leaves poor helpless creatures alone like this? Jake circled the car. Was there any easy way of doing this? He tried one of the doors. Not only was it locked, but his actions triggered the cacophonic wail of a car alarm. Both kittens vanished in an instant beneath the car seat, and the sudden noise set the dogs off to begin barking with new gusto. This was not exactly the quick solution Jake had in mind, but perhaps it was a good thing. All that noise had to attract some attention, perhaps even that of the driver of the white hatchback. Jake stepped back, looking at both ends of the street, but nobody showed up. The car was parked on a lane nobody used, making it too much trouble to check. After a while, the car alarm stopped, leaving Jake feeling disappointed and hopeless. But was there something else he could do? There was one risky solution left. These days, Jake was a good person. He worked hard, paid his bills on time, and cared about others. But it wasn't always like that. As a teenager, he felt abandoned by his dad and neglected by his mom. He was always angry and got into trouble with a group of friends who liked breaking things and stealing cars. But one day, he got caught and was sent to work at an animal shelter. There, he learned to love and care for animals, which changed his life. Even after finishing his community service, Jake kept volunteering at the animal shelter, finding new purpose and empathy. When faced with the street gang, he saw reflections of himself in the dogs, which made him believe in them. To save the kittens, smashing a car window seemed the simplest solution, but it risked arrest due to his past. Jake felt it was right, but law enforcement might disagree. As one kitten, the orange one, sought help, Jake promised action. With no help in sight, he had to rescue them himself. He didn't have anything suitable on him, as he had not expected to get involved in an impromptu rescue operation. He reasoned that it would be safer to try a side window, as that might be slightly weaker than the large front window. He also had to make sure that the kittens would be safe once he got them out. He found a large stone and picked it up. "Well, here goes," Jake said. He swung the stone at the window. The glass spidered into a web of cracks, and the car alarm began to wail again, but the glass was not yet breached. The little orange kitten's eyes went black with alarm, but he was too tired to get off the seat. He just looked at Jake balefully, still panting. The younger dogs backed away from the car, perhaps fearing that Jake might turn his sudden violent tendencies on them. The boxer and his beta, the German shepherd, continued to let out an occasional bark. Jake smashed the stone in the car window a second time. More cracks appeared, but there were no fractures. The next moment, someone grabbed Jake by the shoulder and yanked him away from the side of the car. The dogs backed away one by one, obviously not trusting the presence of the newcomer. Jake whirled around to see who was confronting him. It was a heavy-set older man, obviously someone who had done manual labor for much of his life because he was built like a brick wall. But Jake ignored it. "Is this your car?" he demanded. "So what if it is?" The older man replied gruffly. "You can't do that," Jake said, getting angry. "How could you leave them there like that? Open up." "What are you talking about?" the older guy said. "And what's with the dogs?" "Just look," Jake shouted. "Look, the poor thing must be frying in there." The older man finally did what Jake asked. He was shocked. "Oh my God, I didn't know. It's not my car. Poor thing." "There are two of them in there," Jake went on. "I saw two. Maybe there's more, but I saw two of them. It was the dogs that got me to notice them. Clever beasts. I thought they were strays," the older guy pointed out. "They are strays," Jake confirmed, "but the kittens. Do you know whose car this is?" The older guy sighed. "That I don't," he said. "But it's someone who works nearby because I've seen this car park here regularly." "We need to get them out of there," Jake said urgently. "Otherwise they're dead. We need to get them out." "Hang on," said the older guy. "I'm calling security." "Hurry," said Jake. The older guy ran off, and each moment that passed felt like an eternity. Jake paced about. It could call the police for all he cared, just so long as the kittens got out in time. Fortunately, the older guy was back quickly, followed by not one but two security guards. Like the older guy, one of them now referred to as they'd expressed shock at the cracked window but quickly changed their tune when Jake explained about the kittens and how dire their situation looked. "That's Miss Stubbs' car," one of them said. He called her, but she was away. "She won't like what this guy did to her car window," said the second officer. Meanwhile, one of them took out a string from his pocket. Jake quickly glanced inside of the kitten, urging for haste. The second security guard maneuvered the string through the gap until it caught the locking peg. After some tries, he successfully opened the door. The police and more people arrived, but Jake didn't wait. He picked up the little orange kitten. "Is it alive?" someone asked. "Is it going to be all right?" Jake held the little kitten close to him. It opened its eyes. "There's another one," he said. "At least one." A strange noise came from the back of the car. A policewoman reached in, took out a small black and white kitten, and gave it to Jake. It was asleep, but Jake could feel its tiny heart beating. The orange kitten opened its eyes and meowed. Then it saw its sibling and started licking its face. Jake felt relieved. The kittens were alive. They would be okay. Someone brought bowls of water while Jake watched over them. The orange kitten drank happily, but the black and white one still looked confused. "Are they okay? Are they out?" The woman sounded scared. Jake guessed she was Miss Stubbs, the car's owner. Would she be angry about the broken window? Would she call the police? But when she came closer, she only cared about the kittens. They're not mine," she said. "I don't know how they got in the car. They belong to my sister, and she told me they were missing." She looked at Jake. "Did you break the window?" she asked. Jake nodded. "I'm sorry. Yes, I did. I'm just glad the kittens are safe. I'll take them to the vet and then back to my sister. I'll make sure she watches them better." "How did you know they were there?" Miss Stubbs asked. "The dogs," Jake said, but they had already left. "Never mind. I'll make sure they get a big meal tonight and find good homes." What would you do if you saw two kittens trapped in a car? Let us know in the comments below.